It's a pleasure to be here, and yeah, thank you for the invite once again. Yeah, today I'm gonna talk a bit about the history behind OpenBB, how I started the project, why Python, why open source, and then we're going to go a bit into the terminal itself, what it offers, and then the SDK, which is like basically a Python library for you to have access to all of this vast range of data. So let's get started. So the OpenBB origin, how did this started? So basically, my background is engineering. I have a master's in control systems, so I don't have any like finance experience like whatsoever. What happened is that when I finished my master's, I was really interested on the field of machine learning and AI. So and I learned that the best way to learn about the topic was to learn Python. So in my spare time, I got the job as a software engineer, and in my spare time, I used all my time to learn about Python. And then as I was learning, I started sharing what I was doing. Some side projects, I was open sourcing them, until one day, my previous maths teacher reached out to me and basically said that he was working on his PhD thesis, which was on deep neural networks, and in specific for financial time series. And he needed my help. We wanted to write the code in Python, and I was like, this is amazing because I'm learning about the financial field. I want to learn about the financial field. I'm studying Python, and this would push me to the area of AI and machine learning. So that's what I did. I started working on it with it on him, and I started getting really interested about financial time series behave because they are so unpredictable. And at the time, I was reading books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, and like you learn that you need to invest like at some point in your life. And when I finished the PhD thesis like code, I had like 2-3 years of experience, which meant that I had some savings in my bank account. And it's not much different now, but and yeah, and basically at the time I started learning, okay, I sit down and I started to understand, okay, like historical stock price is one thing, but like the world of investing is so massive. There's so much information, and when you start, you take like 30 minutes to do investment research because you look at historical price and fundamentals, and that's it. But then you learn, oh, okay, what is this about insider trading? Oh, what is this about like the sentiment of the Reddit or Twitter impacting a stock price? And then soon my dashboard of investing looked like that, where I had like 20 30 tabs open. And the problem is not just the fact that I had 20 30 tabs open, because each of these tabs showed me a specific category that I was interested. The problem was not just that the tabs were open. My main problem was the fact that I was doing a lot of manual work. I was like sitting down and I was going into a dashboard, looking for like NVIDIA, taking a screenshot, putting on a Word document, writing something down, going to the next dashboard, look for NVIDIA for like fundamental analysis, and then take a screenshot, and all of that was manual. And so it started taking me my entire weekend to do investment research. There was literally nothing automated. And even if Bloomberg, I could afford the Bloomberg still didn't allow me the level of automation that I wanted. And that was like really, really painful. And I went to GitHub and I didn't really find anything like, previously in my career, I feel like GitHub always had the answer, or at least some sort of answer that I could, take and build on top. But in this case, there was nothing. And I was like, this is a bit weird because there's a feel like why finance packages, but they kind of like stop at just the data side, and I'm like, I want a bit more. I want like a bit automation. I want like my own like platform and really make it mine. So what's happened is I kept writing down notes of like it would be cool if these existed. And basically this was during COVID. I was meant to visit my parents. I was in London at the time, and my flight got canceled. And so I was like, I have a week in my hands. I don't got anything to do. I was like, you know what, I might as well start this platform. And that's what I did. And here's me in London coding with my dogs on my lap. And the first thing for me when I started coding this platform is okay, so what do I want to build? I want to build a platform that allows me to streamline my entire investment research workflow, and allows me not just to access data, but actually make faster retrieval of data and really automate. Ultimately, that's where I wanted to go. And I was really proficient in Python, and plus, like I learned that from people in the financial industry that they are learning Python now. So I thought that this is a bet that I'm going to make, that Python is going to be big in the financial industry. And so, I decided, okay, I'm going to work with Python end to end. I didn't want like another technology front end, because that was going to like make me slower at coding, and I was proficient at the Python at the time. And And yeah, and so the second part was like, okay, data sources, like financial world, like one reasons why like Bloomberg is because they have access to all of these data and they actually have the rights to the data and redistribution. So I was like, my main problem is how I get the data. And what I realized after going to several different data providers is that they all operate somehow in the same way in terms of how they provide you access to the data, is that they have like a free tier. You basically register to them, they give you an API key, and then you can access a certain limit of data. If you are, for instance, looking at fundamentals, usually they might bound you to, only 5 years of fundamentals. If you want more, you pay for a premium API key. But in terms of implementation of the actual like API call, like the code is the same. What changes is the API key, but you eat the same endpoint. You just have a different parameter. And that was like, I was like, that's interesting because I have data source A, I have data source B, I have data source C, and the data that they give on a free tier is actually different. And for me, if I was actually taking the value of the data that I was being given, I wouldn't be very happy to pay for a subscription of like $10, $20 to have access to like more data in the past, or even more requests per minute. For me, it was like perfect. So that's what I started building, and I built it for like 2 months. I was like at the full-time job, and then like working like another like 6 hours on top of it. I was like super excited. I built like really fast, and 2 months after I released it, and I released it under the name of GameStonk Terminal because I was a GME investor, and Elon Musk tweeted GameStonk, and I was like, GameStonk Terminal sounds cool, and so we went viral as soon as I open sourced the project. And it was interesting because all the other open source projects that I've done, I had shared them on LinkedIn, but like my audience was really small at the time. And I felt like no one really cares anyway. I'm just doing it for myself. And I did the same this time. The only thing that I did different is that I thought, I learned a lot on investing from people that read it. So I'm going to post in there. And that's where everything started. So the terminal went viral on Reddit, and someone told me, put in Hacker News. And I was like, oh, seriously? Okay, I'm going to try. And we went viral there. And then Vice magazine called us a do-it-yourself meme stock version of Bloomberg Terminal, which I was like, okay. And in the post, they actually wrote that, this is a terminal targeted to GameStop. And I was like, no, it's not, but sure. So this helped us a lot. And for me, it was like the realization of, okay, actually, I'm not the only one on this boat. More people are actually in the same position than me. They are like interested on, having more access to data and like, building their own tools and building on top. And for me, the reason why open source was very clear is because my background is not finance. So ultimately, I wanted people from the financial industry, like quants, data scientists, like everyone to help on this effort, because I knew that, I couldn't pull it out on my own. We built a Discord community. We have like now 13,000 people there. We grew like a lot since the beginning. And then we got approached by OSS Capital to raise money, and we ended up raising 8.8 million on a seed round. On the left side is me and James, which is the co-founder of OpenBB, is actually the first really like contributor of OpenBB. So he started contributing really fast. And at the time, I didn't really think about the business at all. I was just like, I want to build this tool fast, and I have a full-time job, so I can only dedicate so many hours a day. And so he was finishing his PhD in quantum physics, and he was like, yeah, sure, the labs are closed, I have time. So we became like, co-founders. And here's a picture of us in front of the NASDAQ tower. And then on the right side is Joseph Jacques, which is our lead investor from OSS Capital. So here's the journey. Is we got incorporated like almost 2 years ago. We raised around in November. Then in March, we announced the terminal, basically not GameStonk Terminal, but we rebranded into OpenBB. And in June, we joined forces with a company called Options FunBot, which was like the most famous like Discord bot, which allows you to retrieve financial data from Discord directly. Kind of what Midjourney does with the Imagine prompt, but like for stock data and crypto data. We launched OpenBB Bot, and then last November, we launched OpenBB Terminal 2.0 and the machine learning and AI toolkit, and with the machine learning AI toolkit, and then the SDK, which is something that I'm going to share with you in a second. And finally, this April, we announced Terminal 3.0, which basically brings the interactive charts and interactive like tables, and the OpenBB Hub, which is the place where you can manage all of OpenBB products. And yeah, I put here a chart of like our growth in terms of like open source, which could be interesting. Yeah, OpenBB Hub. So the OpenBB Hub is basically where you can have access to the 4 of our products. So I just added it here for reference. So if you go to my.openbb.co, you can download the terminal, but you can also set up the API keys for the SDK. And yeah, I'm gonna assume that you're gonna go here, and I'm gonna skip that step when I do the demo of the terminal and the SDK. We're gonna focus just on the terminal and the SDK. The bot is like a different product, and the Terminal Pro is what we are building more for as a commercial product. So OpenBB Terminal, let's do a live demo. I was doing the slides actually today, and I was thinking that these guys are probably gonna appreciate more a live demo. Oh yeah, that's probably better. Is that okay? Yeah. Wait. Yeah. Okay, so the way this works, probably a lot of you are new to this, is that we organize the terminal. It's like a tree hierarchy. Basically, here what you see are menus, and then light blue what you see are commands. And so let's say that I go into the stocks menu. I click stocks, and then what you see here is commands. These are all the data sources that I have access to for the same command, and then these are other menus, right? So if I want to load data from Tesla, I can just do load Tesla, and here by default I have the data source Yahoo Finance, and then I can do candle, and this allows me to have a return a chart from Tesla. Well, as simple as that. One thing that we announced on the 3.0 is that you have a lot of new features. So you can make drawings, you can draw lines, you can change the theme, and you can export the data as an image, as a CSV. You can also overlay charts. So I can click here, and I can overlay like a chart from let's do Apple, and I'm going to use this color for up and orange for down. And you can see now there's 2 charts in here. Let me go back to I like more the dark mode. And yeah, as you can see, like it's kind of powerful in terms of what you can do now in terms of the charts. But the most important thing is the amount of data that there is here. So we have, I think now more than 900 commands, and that's not even considering all the parameters that each command has. Because basically when you go to one command, and let's try another one, let's go into technical analysis. And so these are all of the indicators that we have. I can do something like EMA-H, and this gives me the help. So this gives me all the parameters that I'm allowed to do. And in this case, let's say that I want to do the length one. So this is like, it uses the Python library like argparse. Let's say that I want to see the exponential moving average with the lengths of 50 and 200. I can basically press enter. Those are recognized on the terminal through argparse, and then they are sent, and we use our own SDK, which is like basically the core to make it happen. And so this is kind of how it looks. But as I said, like at the beginning, my idea was to really optimize the entire workflow. So I wanted to do more than just, have access to data. And so we created this concept of pipelines where you can like pipe multiple commands together. And so when you start learning about how the terminal looks, you can really leverage that. So I can do like stocks. And then I know that if I go into, I can do like, let's load NVIDIA. I can go into FA, which is fundamental analysis, and I can do like a balance, which will show me the balance sheet of NVIDIA, and then I can go one menu up. I can go to dark pool short data, and I do price versus short interest, and then I can run these, and it just runs, and it displays all the data that then I can infer something from. And so that's kind of our these pipelines is something that we introduced like I think last year. And then now one thing that we are pushing for is routines. So basically it's like like our OpenBB scripting language, where you can basically use the .openbb file, and you can put all of these commands in a text file with the extension OpenBB, and then you can run it through the menu. So I think I got something actually open to share. Yeah, so for instance, if I go into the hub, if I go into the terminal, I'm not logged in. Anyway, I can do like an executable, and then I can execute this file, and I think I'll call it something like test me, and then I can select an input, and it will run that file with passing an argument from outside. And yeah, it just works. And actually, yeah, this is kind of the core of it. I have a feature that I want to show, which is like some of you maybe, and a lot of people are, to be honest, is like, okay, this can get like really complex in terms of like the amount of data that there is. I just showed stocks, but we have crypto, ETF, economy, and a lot of this is like from the community. So someone came in and they just added a command that they felt that, you know, someone will appreciate. But we added like this feature, which is still in a beta, which is Ask OBB, and basically allows you to not have to really understand the command. So the command syntax. So you can say GDP in Portugal and Italy, for instance. And these will use, in this case, I think we're using GPT 3.5 model, and it will retrieve what is the syntax that is recommended. Yeah. Okay, it worked. It worked, but I didn't say yes. Anyway, oh, you can see here that this is the suggested command, and then now if I do yes, you can see that it just goes directly into the command. So I don't even need to really learn the syntax. I can just say ask OBB and say what I want, and we just, you know, parse that into a syntax and to a command. Okay, but now you're asking, you know, how does this happen under the hood? Because this is this an end application, but the beauty is actually on the SDK. And the SDK is what allows to have access to all the data. Basically, this command line interface, what we have is like a generic, like a model view controller, and the controller just routes what happens on the SDK. So basically, we parse the commands that the user gives into an SDK call, and then that's where the beauty happens. And the SDK, I'm going to show like examples that you can access on our open source platform, on the open source GitHub project. So you can go into this folder called examples, and you have examples in there. In this case, I have it already open on Visual Studio Code. And so all you need to do is from OpenBB terminal and OpenBB_terminal.sdk import OpenBB, and you are pretty much ready to access all of the data. And so here you have some details, but basically the way it works is a one-to-one convention. So if you learn how to use the terminal, you learn how to use the SDK, and vice versa. So you saw earlier that I did load to load a ticker. You can do the same here. So you do openbb.stocks.load, and then you select the symbol that you want, and then you get the data frame directly, and you're ready to use it. And then we have arguments like, you know, verbose, or you have like start date, or you have like intraday, or like frequency of the data. You can check that using the you know, the interrogation mark before a function call to know what is possible. So basically, yeah, can do. So you can do something like this, and this should return you the signature of the function and allows you to check the parameters, or you can check our documentation wherever you prefer. Autocompleter also should work. So if I go into stocks, I should get a list. Now it's not working, but it should provide me with a list of the functions that I can access to. One thing that we also wanted to provide is not just pure access to data, but we have like the library on top, the visualization library, which allows you to actually visualize the data using the library Plotly. Yeah, on the terminal, the end application, when I showed you Plotly, there's a few modifications that we have and configured it so that you can draw lines and stuff. But here you can see is a pure Plotly. And so you can do interesting things like, you know, load historical data. You can have access to like thread data, and you can see that we have like access to multiple different like data sources. Let me see what this notebook has. So here you get like a thread data, and you select the tickers that you're interested, and then you can see that all of the data arrives on the other end, and you can do anything you want pretty much with it. So yeah, basically, ultimately, what we want to do is to create this, you know, ecosystem for investment research that is open source and that everyone can contribute to. And so we are actually in a very good position because we have like a lot of data sources wanting to integrate into with us, because we are not stealing their data. You actually, when you use OpenBB, you get an API key from them, and you have to sign up with them. So they get that like the registration and new user, and then they are able to upsell it to you. So there's like a win-win situation. And because it's open source, we get like contributors and people from all over the world adding, you know, Forex. Some people have, you know, more interest around like, you know, options, and they add options. And yeah, I think. Yeah, but then this example, you can see a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of data here. You can just scroll. You can see what type of examples we have here. But yeah, it's just like a Python library that has the same like convention as the terminal, and you have access to all of these financial data. And yeah, I think that's been like 25 minutes. So like I'm open to any questions that the audience may have.
Yeah, we got a microphone here.
So you mentioned that the UI is in Python. Is it still in Python?
Well, now we have the library that we created. So the Plotly is on top. We built an open source library called PyRI that is built in Rust. So it's like a Python web viewer, and then is deployed with Python on top. But we needed that library so that we can have it more interactive. So almost fully Python.
Hello. Do you have fundamental data?
Yes, we do.
And
Yeah.
also, what is the lowest grain of the data?
The what? Sorry.
The lowest grain of the data, like the time grain.
The time. What do you mean? Sorry.
Is it 1 minute interval? 5 minute interval?
Oh,
Is that-
so that is not controlled by us. It depends on the data provider that you select. So for instance, we have as historical data, for instance, we have data bento and they provide data in real time. So we will get data as soon as the API retrieves. But one thing that I always say is like OpenBB Terminal was not, built for like high frequency trading, for instance, because, you would probably use like C++ or a better language for speed.
Okay, does it offer real-time streaming data too?
It depends on what you consider real time, right? Because data bent, one of our data providers, we access one of their endpoints and they have real time data there. But because we cannot process it like fast enough, like what you consider like real time with few seconds, is it still real time? Do you know what I mean? Just because we haven't optimized for that. The platform is more for like data retrieval, like creating like a full investment research report, and yeah.
You said it's open source, so
It's fully open source, fully free. There's no cost attached. Yeah.
Is there a way I could like stream a bunch, given a batch of stocks or something? Could I do any filtering and ranking of like certain parameters?
Yeah, we have a menu that's called Screener, and you can create like some screening files, and you can select like balance sheet, like revenue, and things like that. Yeah.
Is it a ChatGPT integration to be able to use natural language to translate into OpenBB commands? Was that correct?
Yeah.
So are you is that your own API key with
That is correct. Yeah, that is correct.
yeah,
That is
I
correct.
was curious if you had like a llama or something local to try and
Yeah,
Awesome.
we have having those discussions. The issue is that like we are not generating revenue yet, so we're a bit concerned about giving our own OpenAI key. Also because like we saw that the GPT-4 gives much better conversion from natural language to OpenBB commands, because this application is very different than the other ones out there, because we don't retrieve the data directly. We have to retrieve into the OpenBB syntax, and the syntax has like states, which you load something and then you need to go into that menu after. So we're gonna first, at the time that we put the feature out, we're gonna rely the user to get their own OpenAI API key, and then we'll think if we want to provide some. No worries.
Any other questions? I'm trying to record them on the mic so it goes on to the video feed as well. So people who aren't here can hear.
Is this also connected to the Indian stock market?
It depends on the data source. So Yahoo Finances supports the Indian market. So the thing that is like one of the hardest challenge that we do is the standardization of the data. We've got like 100 different data sources, and each data source has their own convention. So some use a data frame that returns like the title of the column is like open with a capital O. Another uses like a small o. Another doesn't has a just closed. So we need to standardize all of that. And so what we do is just like creating that like middle layer between users and data sources, and we standardize and we give you access to data. So when you ask like do we have like Indian data, it just depends on each data source if they actually support the Indian data. In this case, because I know, because I use it, Yahoo Finance permits you to search for Indian tickers. You need to use the .ns, capital NS suffix in the end, but we have a command called search that you can use. So you can say like search this ticker, and it will tell you what is the ticker for Yahoo Finance.
Sweet. That's a good.
My question was, you talked about there's a lot of, I was just checking online the OpenBB, and it said it runs a lot of historical data, right? And it also integrates with real-time data.
Yeah.
Okay. So if there would be there was a specific, say, a stock,
Mhm.
would it predict about it, like if it's crashing or if it's coming down, does it show the prediction though?
So we have machine learning and AI forecasting. I would say that is probably one of the most advanced platforms. We don't advertise it that much because we don't want to be on that side of the coin. We want to build the tools that like quants and hedge funds use and financial analysts, but we don't want to go that step to like recommend. What our machine learning AI forecasting platform does is allows you to put multiple like financial time series and then use like a deep neural network model, like, you know, even like a simple regression. There's like so many models that we have, but you know, select the weights, you select, you tune it first. So then, you know, the prediction is on you and not on us. What we have as just a base to show you that, you know, you can build on top of this anything you want, you know.
That's what I want to answer. Thank you.
But yeah, straight off the box, I wouldn't recommend trade.
You had a full-time job and you learn Python on your own.
Uh-huh.
You know, I have a job that uses Scotland, but I'm passionate about Python. And I was thinking, well, maybe he doesn't have two dogs, so he has more time on his hands with Python. And you have two dogs. How do you keep yourself motivated when you have a job, full-time job, and you are doing something else? How do you keep motivated? Being married, having two dogs, having other obligations.
Yeah. So when I started it, like it was out of frustration. I'm not gonna lie. It was because I was really frustrated that there was no tools. And when I started building it, I had so much fun and seeing it coming together because I was looking at my notebook with my notes and I saw it coming together in front of me. And so I started seeing that, you know, I can actually save a lot of time already with this. And I just started building. And I remember showing it to my friends, and some of them said, like, you know, dude, this looks like shit. And I'm like, you know, that's fine. But it's gonna look good. I know it. You know, I know that this is the right track. And this is the beginning. Like, if you're not embarrassed about like the first thing you show, you know. And so I kept building it. And then I think that there was a time that was when I released, I actually talked with my wife because we hadn't done anything in 2 months because I was just doing this full time. And she was like, you know, it's been a bit hectic, you know, can we like, you know, chill? And I said, yeah, I'll release this and then I'll chill a bit. And that was a lie because basically then everyone started like, you know, creating pull request features. And at the time, like my Python wasn't even like, you know, like good. Like my pip install requirements was embarrassing because I didn't expect that amount of people to try it and different machines. And I was like, you know, why does a different machine doesn't work with them, you know? And then I realized, okay, I learned the hard way. Okay, this is actually not trivial. But then I think that the motivation came from the amount of people that were interested in the project. So at the time I was like, you know, this is not just for me anymore. I have like a lot of people on my shoulders and I want to make this tool happen because I know that no one is going to put as much in this project than I am. Because like for me, it's like, you know, I'm in this position in life. I was given the opportunity to build this and I'm going to, you know, give everything. And my wife, like I told us this from day one, you know, like this is me, like I'm a bit workaholic, like, you know, we can do like fun stuff, but like at the core, like I'm a workaholic and I love what we're doing in OpenBB. And she was very on board with that. So we moved to like 3 months ago to the Bay Area. And, you know, like if she wasn't as supportive, like I couldn't have come, you know. So.
So I've been using this tool for a few weeks, and one of the things is, I got started with something like, just spinning up the terminal using my local machine. But soon enough, I realized that, I want to move into AWS, something like S3 to store the data. Do you have any plans for that in the pipeline?
We don't, because we want to be in between the data sources and the users. And as soon as we start storing the data and giving you access to the stored data, we get in the way, as in like they don't have incentives on being on the platform. And so today, when you access a command, you are not eating anything from OpenBB apart from the code. So you install the platform, you are on your machine, you do the request to the data provider endpoint, and you get the data that then is parsed through OpenBB. And then we may have like processing tools, so like the capability to run like routines and stuff and like, you know, automate. That's like us, but the data, you still eat their endpoint. So if you do it like 5 times, you get like, you know, rate limited because you eat the maximum specified by the data provider, you know. So when you talk about like, for instance, even storing data, then you need to discuss not with us, but with the data provider about, you know, doing that and what you're going to do with that, because then it's like commercial licenses and whatnot.
So I have played with this a little bit, and I played with Yahoo Finance and things like that. And I've run into that's like the first problem I ran into, right? It's like, do I really want to, I want a bunch of data. You know, I really don't want to go out and get that same data every single time. One thing I found, and so we should probably talk, I don't know, but one thing I found is that like pandas, and it works really well with like SQLite, and I've been looking at maybe creating basically a caching layer that'll just go out there and it's like, okay, do you have it? No, I don't have it. I'll go out and get it. I do have it. I'll just get it out of my like little local SQLite. But it's not like going out and persisting it forever, but at least it's a little bit better that if you have it locally, it doesn't go off to the internet. Because I've already done that with AWS. I've done the same thing with AWS with S3. It's called AW Simple, by the way. It's another package that I wrote, but it's not for this. But it's the same idea. You cache locally, keep yourself out of AWS. We love, to give Amazon money, but really minimize it. Anyway, so that's my riff on that one. So sorry.
Yeah, just don't let them know that you're doing it this way.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's why Bloomberg is charging so much, because they have all this stuff. My question was about like, who is the user that you're building it for? I mean, it started just for you, but no, who are you building it for? Because it's not going to be for the high frequency trader.
Yeah,
Who is it for?
so the platform, the open source, I would say that is more for developers and quants today. And so we have like, analysts and some like people from hedge funds that, go home and you cannot access like your desktop Bloomberg because you need to be in person, and you cannot build like, I mean, I remember someone from Bloomberg that is an engineer there using OpenBB because, they got home and they couldn't really, and they couldn't modify the Bloomberg, but like ultimately I'd say like developers and quants, and now we're building the Terminal Pro, which is where we expect to build like a commercial business model and create like a profitable business, which is basically the same as the terminal, but with a better user interface and with features that are meant to enterprise. And my idea is that we can, create a profitable business model with that like extra layer, and then, put more efforts into the open source project, which then benefits everyone. And I would say that the category that I'm most excited is students. At least like the reality in Europe is like, out of 1,000 students, you have one Bloomberg machine. And one person that we hire that has a degree in finance, she had to queue in order to have access to financial data. And sometimes she was going to retrieve data and he was already like rate limited. So like the reality is literally horrible. And you're just a student trying to get by, to learn finance, like not having like a platform that allows you like the freedom that you deserve. Like it's just, it's not fair.
So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.